Unbelievable Reality Podcast. I am Roy Arthur. Normally, I spend a lot of time recommending a read. I'm going to be quick about it today. I brought this up before. Charles C. Mann. If you really want a broader perspective on the discovery of North and South America and the flourishing global economy back in 1491, which is absolute madness. If you ask me, I can't imagine getting in a 100-foot long boat with 40 other guys and sailing for years. These people were fucking insane. But Charles C. Mann, 1491, 1493, pre-Columbus, it's what the world was like and how it was exploited and colonialism really just took off. Right now we're dealing with there's so many things going on that it's really hard for me to focus on specific topics, but I believe that everything is connected. I have what I call a spider web theory that I've built over the years, and that is the theory that all things are connected. It's just not linear. It's like a spider web. And what tingles the web on the far side is felt deep into the center of the web in varieties of ways. If you've ever watched a spider build a web, it's fascinating. You would have to actually slow your life down and put your phone away. What's been going on with the technocracy that is overtaking this attempt at turning the United States into a Christian nationalist, a white Christian nationalist government, society, and of fascism? The seeds of this have always existed. And I talk a lot in the podcast about American history, real American history, not the wannabe kind that we force down our kids' throats in school. It would be really nice if history was as clean as it is presented, but the truth of the matter is it never is and it never was. The United States was founded as through a colonial empire, a colonial structure by companies. It wasn't families seeking refuge. I spoke about this in the last podcast. This has always been a capitalist corporate society from the very, very beginning. And there have been numerous attempts over the course of the history of this country. One of the biggest was the conflict between capitalism and government, called our Civil War. Really, the Civil War, when you drill down to the very bottom line, it was about money, and it was about control of money. And in the South, money equated slaves, because slaves were so valuable. They were bought and sold like any other commodity, like wheat, like tobacco, like cotton. People were simply a commodity to be bought and sold, but the wealth of the South was based on that. The industrial North wanted to have control of that wealth and also exploit it without having the stigma attached of slavery, because the rest of the world had already moved on. I mean, England abolished slavery in like 1802. Didn't stop the Atlantic slave trade in the slightest, but that's reality. What I'm rambling about here and trying to get to the point of is what's taking place right now is a plan that began in the early 70s. This is another attempt at a corporate takeover and an ethnic cleansing of the country. Except this time it's actually working because all the pieces are in place. And the engine behind this current takeover is the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. Specifically, Milton Friedman and, God, I wrote it down, Lewis Powell. In 1971, Lewis Powell wrote a memo or a fucking letter to a colleague outlining his vision for a capitalistic future where the workers were second and the corporation was always first. Friedman followed that up in 76 with the Friedman Doctrine, which just reinforced the same principles of what Lewis Powell had suggested. This is not a scientific fact. This is a theory. This is an idea. Both of these guys just put forth ideas on how the economics of the United States should function. And those ideas have now become law. But that's when it began. Here's a fascinating thought. Nixon added Powell to the Supreme Court in 73. That was the beginning. And the Heritage Foundation was founded in 1973. And the Heritage Foundation was Powell's idea. Following the Heritage Foundation in 1982, the Federalist Society was formed. If you don't know what the Federalist Society is, it's a far-right Republican think tank that both of these, the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, are white nationalist. They're Christian-based, specifically Protestant Christian belief-based, but not really. It's just Christianity works really, really well with capitalism, if you haven't figured that out yet. The Catholic Church actually built the model for this over 2,000 years of world domination. That's something else to chew on at a later time. But the point I'm trying to make is that as we're watching more monopolies happen, as we're watching everything consolidate, as we're watching the obvious corruption, the blatant corruption in Washington, D.C. right now, I mean, they're so confident of their strategy and their success that they're not even hiding, that they're just paying people off and that everybody's profiting. I mean, Trump has made $2 billion in the first 18 months of his presidency. More than every other president combined. The billions his family, his whelp, his offspring have made through his ascendancy to power, which was backed by the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, is untold billions, and with more billions projected to come. The corporate takeover is a strategy that is 50 years old. And when I think on this, I have to think, my God, these guys knew that they were planting a tree whose shade they would never enjoy. They would never sit under that tree. That is how dedicated, disciplined, and long-term their planning was. They knew they would die before they ever even saw any real results. But they planted the seeds. And that's the part that I don't think the average American understands. We're all seeing all of this, the AI explosion, the data center build out, the surveillance apparatus going up every second around us from every angle. That's another thing. Surveillance is no longer, Flock doesn't even try to pretend anymore that it's a license plate capture device. They don't even bother. They've got 120,000 cameras minimum scattered across the entire United States. They're no longer even trying to pretend like they're not watching everything you do. But that is part of the plan. The only way that a takeover of an entire nation works is if you can control that population. And the way you control it is by watching. And we've seen numerous regimes come and go throughout history. And that has been the one way they've always controlled population, is by data. It's just whether it was written on a scroll 1,500 years ago, 500 years ago, written in a book, written in a ledger, copied on a goddamn wall, or embedded on a chip, or in a data center. It's always been the same. In order to control people, you have to know exactly what they're doing. What they're thinking is the ultimate goal. Because now we can influence how people think on a subliminal level. AI is nowhere near the quality or the machine that is being sold. It's not sentient. It's not awake. It's all fucking bullshit. If you use, and I have for the last 90 days, I've been using ChatGPT, their Pro model, and Claude 5, Opus 5, and just had access to Mythos for a week before they closed that off. These machines make mistakes constantly. Chat is the worst. But the push to capture all of this data is to fix those mistakes. Okay? And whether that's done now or 5 years down the road, it does not matter, because what they're building will not be erased. And the next level of entrepreneurs that come in and take over after these original groups of companies fail, because they will, because that always happens. It's never, ever, ever long-term the original founders. Rare unicorns. Amazon, Facebook, maybe currently, but look at the railroad boom. Look at the Industrial Revolution. Look at the evolution of the stock market. I mean, go back in time. Every single idea, the founders never survive. It's the second and third wave of developers that take ideas to the next level. I went off on a huge tangent here. I hope you stayed with me. The point I'm trying to make for everybody to understand, this is a 50-year-old plan. And the stars have aligned right now with the mega movement, with Trump. This was all also initiated by the Heritage Foundation, by the Federalist Society. None of this is an accident. Blue versus red is deliberate. It's a distraction, so we ignore the extraction of profit and the exploitation of people, the destruction of the union movement, the tearing apart of our social fabric, the eliminating the closeness of neighbors is deliberate. It's planned. It was all part of the idea that has evolved as new leaders have stepped in to take over. Capitalism has always been a horrific model for the average person, period. It's period. There was a brief period of time from World War II until these guys, specifically Friedman in 76, who said that the corporation and the corporate shareholders are more important than the customer. That revolutionary idea is what's turned business upside down. Why we get shitty products, why we have horrible food, why none of our systems work correctly, why there's planned obsolescence, why there's shitty, shoddy products that are sold to us, why there's this need to control through the very products Our TVs are watching us. Our cars are watching us. Our watches are watching us. Our rings are watching us. My God. And this is all part of this exploitive plan. The people that have always suffered through capitalism are the average people. The rich have always gotten richer. And there's no way to fix that, because people by nature, and this you only need to understand too, it only needs to be a small group. In this country, it's the upper 1/10 of 1% that have gone bad, period. They've gone bad. They don't have empathy anymore. They don't care about people at all. It's a fight, and it's a war amongst the elites to be the most dominant in their pool. We're just collateral damage. As long as we serve a purpose, this is why the rush to automation, the robots, etc. As long as we are needed, then we have value. As soon as we are no longer needed, we have no value. And how we come to our demise is not of their concern. They're just creating the environment for us to basically eat each other. That's what it is. And it's none of their concern. They don't care. And that makes sense, because that's how humanity is. What's really unusual in humanity is being a good person, caring about your neighbors, giving freely, being honest, being authentic, valuing your family more than yourself. That makes you an outlier. That makes you unusual. That makes you special. Being rich doesn't make you anything, but it turns your brain into believing that you are something more than everybody else. Point of this podcast is this. What's happening to us now began in the 70s, 50 years ago. This is all part of a real plan, a real conspiracy. It's true. It is true. Some conspiracies are fact. This happens to be one of them. And the final nail in the coffin we can thank Mitch McConnell for is the takeover of the Supreme Court by the Federalist Society to overturn Citizens United and allow dark money, black money into our election system that's unaccounted for and that is corrupting. Period. The end. Citizens United was the final nail in the coffin of this 50-year plan. And here we are now, 15 years later, suffering from it. You can just look at Roe v. Wade. You can just look at the elimination of voting rights. You can look at corporations. You can look at Elon Musk spending $250 million to influence an election in the last 6 months, and it being perfectly legal to see the consequences of Citizens United. Because that $250 million in propaganda made all the difference in the world. And that is not a fucking conspiracy. That is a fact that we don't even talk about anymore. Someday in the future, historians will. As usual, I'm Roy Arthur P. Benny. This is Unbelievable Reality Podcast, because we live in an unbelievable reality, but it's by design. Get your head around that. If you don't like what I have to say, my opinions, my thoughts, don't fucking watch. If you do, stick around, subscribe, and comment, interact, build community, because that's the one thing they definitely don't want us to do. I'll talk to you soon.